Step into the shadows where whispered tales linger. In this playlist, we uncover urban legends, stories born in back alleys, abandoned roads, and the corners of your mind. Some say they're just myths, others aren't so sure. Listen, if you dare.
I was halfway through wiping down the counter when I noticed the sound. It wasn't the humming of the coolers, or the distant growl of a truck on the highway, or the restless wind rattling the tin sign outside. This was softer, like a low breath pressed right against the glass door. I froze, rag in my hand, watching the reflection of the fluorescent lights ripple across the front window. At first I thought maybe it was condensation from my own breathing, but the smear was on the outside, and it moved. The smear slid slowly down the glass as though someone was dragging the side of their face against it. I couldn't see anyone out there. The gas station parking lot was empty, except for the skeletal outline of the pumps and the dark stretch of road beyond. But I could feel it, that prickling heat along the back of my neck, the certainty that I wasn't alone. I stepped out from behind the counter. The lights above the pumps flickered once, then again, dimming long enough for the shadows to swallow the asphalt. I had just enough time to see something tall move between them, a shape so black it seemed to absorb the light around it. Then the bulbs buzzed back to life and the space was empty. I told myself it was fatigue. I'd been working the night shift for weeks, my eyes aching from the glare, my head foggy from too much coffee. But as I walked toward the glass, I saw them. 2 wet handprints low to the ground, smeared on the door. They weren't like normal handprints. The fingers were too long, the nails dragging shallow scratches through the grime. Between them, something had pressed its face so close I could see the faint oval of where the mouth had been. The skin must have been damp, because a dark, oily residue glistened there, catching the light like tar. I stepped back. The parking lot was still empty. That's when I heard the engine. It didn't sound like the rumble of a modern car, but a deep, throaty growl that rose and fell as if struggling to keep alive. The sound came from the far end of the road, echoing through the quiet. I couldn't see headlights, just that low, mechanical heartbeat getting closer. When the car appeared, my mouth went dry. It was old, black and wrong in ways I couldn't name at first. The paint didn't shine, it seemed to swallow every bit of light it touched. The windows were so dark I couldn't see inside, though I felt certain something inside could see me perfectly. The grille grinned in a too-wide stretch of chrome, and the tires rolled slow, as if the driver wanted me to watch it approach. The black Volga. I'd heard the stories in passing, drunks talking about it in the corner booth, truckers muttering like it was an old superstition. A car that prowled back roads at night, pulling children inside, draining them of blood. But the rumors never mentioned the way the air changed when it got close. It was like the oxygen had been sucked out of the night. The car didn't pull up to the pumps. It didn't even stop. It rolled past the station with its windows sealed and its shadow stretched impossibly long behind it, as if something much taller than a car was walking in its wake. I turned to follow it with my eyes, but the moment it passed the corner of the building, it was gone. No sound, no lights on the road ahead, nothing. I told myself to go back to work. Pretend I'd seen nothing. Pretend the smears on the glass were just a trick of the light. But my skin wouldn't stop crawling. I went outside to clear my head. The air was colder than it had been minutes before. My breath fogged in front of me. The asphalt crunched under my boots, the sound too loud in the silence. I rounded the corner where the Volga had vanished, expecting to see nothing. Instead, I saw the trail. Thin lines of liquid ran from the edge of the building out toward the darkness of the road. The liquid was black in the night, but it glistened thick and slow, like syrup. I crouched down and dipped the rag I still carried into it. It wasn't oil. It was warm, sticky. The smell hit me a second later, sharp and coppery, unmistakable. Blood. A smear of it curved up the wall where a small clump of hair clung to the brick. My stomach twisted. I stepped back, dropping the rag. That's when I realized the pumps were on, all of them. The nozzles hung loose, dribbling dark streams onto the ground as if someone had yanked them free all at once. The lights flickered again. In the glass of the station window, I saw movement behind me. Something was standing by the farthest pump, long limbs, head tilted too far to one side. The light sputtered, and for a fraction of a second I thought it was a person. But then it leaned forward in a single unnatural motion, like its spine was folding in the wrong direction. Its face was pale and stretched thin, and its mouth was too wide. I didn't even remember running inside, only that I slammed the door and locked it, stumbling back until I hit the counter. My heart was hammering, my hands slick with sweat. I stared out at the pump, but there was nothing there now, just the slow drip of fuel pooling on the pavement. I reached for the phone to call the police. The line was dead. Then the engine started again. This time it was right outside. The Volga sat in the lot, facing the station. Its headlights flicked on, not yellow or white, but a dull, throbbing red that painted the walls in a heartbeat glow. Through the darkness of the windshield, I thought I saw shapes moving. Too many limbs bending in too many ways. The driver's door opened, but no one stepped out. Something crawled out instead. It moved low, dragging itself across the pavement, arms bending like insect legs, fingers scraping the ground with a metallic screech. As it got closer, I realized it wasn't coming for the door. It was going for the side of the building. I backed away from the glass, eyes locked on the corner. My mind screamed at me to run, to find somewhere to hide, but my legs wouldn't work. I heard it move along the wall, scraping, pulling, breathing. The sound stopped near the back door. The handle rattled once, then it started to turn. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, the metal flashlight we kept under the counter, and stepped toward the door. My pulse thundered in my ears. The knob turned further, slow and deliberate, as if whoever, whatever was outside wanted me to know it could come in any time it wanted. Then it stopped. Silence. I waited, chest tight, but nothing happened. When I finally worked up the courage to open the back door a crack, the alley was empty. No trail, no blood, no movement. But on the inside of the door, the side that should have been untouched, someone had pressed a wet black handprint. It was still dripping. I didn't clean the handprint. I couldn't. Every time I looked at it, something in my gut told me that if I wiped it away, I'd be erasing proof that this was real, that it wasn't just in my head. But it didn't drip for long. The black liquid seemed to thicken in the cold air until it hardened into a crust, clinging to the metal like tar baked in the sun. I didn't want to touch it. I went back to the front counter, keeping my eyes on the parking lot. The Volga was gone again. No red lights, no shadow, just the quiet hum of the fridges and the smell of gasoline leaking outside. I thought maybe that was the end of it. I thought maybe if I stayed put until morning, whatever this was would leave me alone. That's when the lights over the pumps went out. Not a flicker this time. They died completely, swallowing everything outside in black. The only light came from inside the station, and even that seemed weaker now, as though the darkness outside was pushing in, trying to smother it. I was staring at that darkness when the first bang hit. It came from the side wall, a deep, heavy impact that rattled the glass jars of candy by the register. Then another, closer to the back. The sound wasn't random. It was moving around the building. The third bang hit the front window so hard it left a white spiderweb crack in the glass. I staggered back, clutching the flashlight. Something pale pressed against the crack from the outside. A hand. Not a normal hand. The skin was almost translucent, stretched so thin I could see the veins pulsing beneath it. The fingers were impossibly long, curling until the nails scraped faint trails into the glass. The hand slid slowly down, leaving behind that same thick black smear. I should have run to the office in the back where the shotgun was locked up. I should have called someone, but I just stood there watching as another hand joined the first, and then a face. It was pressed so close to the glass I could see the way its mouth moved. It wasn't opening and closing like a normal mouth. It was stretching, tearing at the corners as if the skin didn't want to let it smile. Behind its teeth, the blackness moved like liquid boiling. The glass bowed under its weight. I bolted for the office. The key to the gun cabinet was supposed to be in the top drawer. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped it, but I managed to get the door open. The shotgun felt heavier than I remembered. The wood worn smooth where 100 hands had gripped it before mine. Before I could load it, I heard the crunch of something hitting the floor out front. I peeked around the corner. The glass door was gone. Not shattered, gone like it had been peeled out of the frame and tossed aside. The thing was inside now, crawling on all fours across the tile, its joints bent wrong, elbows and knees jutting in ways that made my stomach clench. It stopped halfway to the counter and lifted its head toward me. It didn't have eyes, just smooth, pale skin where they should have been. But I knew it could see me. I felt it in the way my chest tightened, like invisible fingers were already wrapped around my heart. I raised the shotgun. It moved before I could fire, faster than anything that size should have been able to move. One moment it was 10 feet away, the next it was in front of me, its hand clamping around the barrel and shoving it aside. The metal bent with a sick groan like it was nothing more than foil. The smell coming off it was worse up close, a mix of rotting meat and gasoline. Its mouth opened again, wider, the black liquid inside bubbling faster now. Drops hit the floor, sizzling where they landed. I swung the flashlight up and smashed it against the side of its head. The beam flickered as the casing dented, but the hit made the thing stagger back just enough for me to run. I didn't go for the front door. I knew it would be waiting there. I went for the back exit, shoving it open so hard the handle dented the wall. The alley was narrow, lined with dumpsters and stacks of empty crates. I made it halfway before I heard the engine again. The Volga was there, blocking the mouth of the alley. Its headlights flared that deep throbbing red, painting the walls like they were bleeding. The rear door opened by itself. Something inside moved. The thing from the store stopped chasing me when it saw the car. It turned its head toward it, then toward me like it was deciding. The air between us seemed to vibrate, and for a moment, I thought it might just leave me. Then the car's engine growled louder and it rushed me. We hit the ground hard. My head cracked against the concrete, my vision flaring white. Its hands were on my shoulders, pinning me down. I could feel the tips of its nails just barely piercing my skin, warm wetness spreading under my shirt. It leaned closer, mouth opening over my throat. The black liquid dripped onto my skin, cold at first, then burning like acid. My body convulsed, but its grip didn't loosen. That's when another sound cut through the air, a horn. The Volga's horn, long, low, commanding. The thing froze above me, its head twitching toward the sound. Then it let go, pushing itself off me with unnatural grace. Without looking back, it crawled toward the car, folding itself into the open door. The door shut. The headlights died, the engine faded, and I was alone again, except for the handprint it left on my chest. Black, wet, and still burning. The handprint wouldn't stop burning. By the time I stumbled back into the station, the skin beneath my shirt felt swollen and tender, every heartbeat sending another pulse of heat through it. I yanked the fabric up to look. The black residue had soaked into my skin. It wasn't just sitting on the surface anymore. Thin, branching veins of it were spreading outward, like roots growing under flesh. I grabbed the rag I'd dropped earlier, but the moment I tried to wipe it off, a jolt of pain shot through me, white and blinding. I dropped to my knees, clutching my side. It wasn't just pain. I felt weaker, lighter, like something was draining out of me with every touch. The fridges hummed in the background. The smell of gasoline was stronger now. I staggered toward the counter to catch my breath, but then I noticed the puddles. The fuel outside had spread into the store, thin trails seeping under the front door frame, winding across the tile like they were moving on their own. The edges of the liquid rippled without wind, without vibration. They were following me. I backed away and the thin streams followed, their glossy surfaces trembling like they were sensing heat. I moved faster. So did they. The building groaned suddenly. Not the settling kind of groan, but deep, structural, like something heavy was leaning on it. The front windows bent inward with a faint creak. I turned toward the back door, but the metal latch was bent from where the thing had tried to come in earlier. It wouldn't open. That's when I heard the horn. One long note so deep it rattled my teeth. I turned toward the sound, and the Volga was there again. Not outside the station, but inside. It was sitting at the far end of the main aisle, impossibly big for the space, its matte black body swallowing the light. The shelves around it were pushed aside like they'd been made of cardboard. The headlights flared red. The puddles of gasoline surged forward, rushing toward my feet. I scrambled onto the counter, but the liquid was climbing now, clinging to the wood, pulling itself upward in ropes. The smell was choking, metallic and sharp, and underneath it the copper tang of blood. The Volga's engine idled, deep and slow, almost like breathing. The back door of the car opened and the dark inside seemed thicker than before, swallowing even the red light. Something moved inside, not the thing from before, something larger. The silhouette didn't match any human shape, its outline jagged and shifting, as if its body couldn't decide on the number of limbs it wanted to have. The sound it made wasn't a growl or a hiss. It was a slurping noise, wet and deliberate, followed by the faint thump of something hitting metal. I realized what it was feeding on when I saw the shoe. Slid out of the open door and landed on the tile. A child's shoe. The laces were still tied, but the leather was soaked dark, dripping into the gasoline below. My throat tightened. The gasoline ropes reached the edge of the counter and grabbed hold of my boots. The moment they touched skin, the same burning started again, spreading up my legs. I kicked free, but every movement made me weaker, my muscles trembling. The car's horn blared again, and this time it wasn't summoning. It was commanding. From the aisles on either side of me, shapes crawled into view. Not people, not anymore. Their skin was stretched tight, eyes clouded over, mouths gaping open in a silent scream. Black veins traced under their skin, pulsing faintly. They moved like marionettes, jerking and twitching toward me. One of them was wearing a gas station uniform. The patch on his shirt still had a name stitched into it. The thread stained dark. I recognized him. He'd worked the shift before me a year ago, then vanished without a trace. They climbed onto the counter with inhuman speed. I swung the bent shotgun, shoving one back into the puddle below, but another grabbed my wrist. Its fingers were ice cold, and where they touched, my skin prickled like it was going numb. I wrenched free, but my balance faltered. My vision swam, not from exhaustion, but from something else. I could feel the Volga pulling at me, like a tide dragging me toward its open door. The red light from its headlights pulsed in time with my heartbeat. One of the creatures lunged, pinning me down on the counter. Its face hovered inches from mine, lips peeling back to reveal teeth coated in the same black liquid that burned in my chest. It didn't bite. It inhaled. The air rushed out of my lungs, out of my body, into its mouth. My vision tunneled. I could feel my heartbeat slowing, the edges of my sight going dark. Somewhere beneath the sound of my own blood roaring in my ears, I heard the Volga's engine rev. Faster, hungrier. And then, just as the last of my strength started to fade, every light in the station blew out at once. The only glow left was the red from the Volga, and it was rolling forward. The counter gave way beneath me. One moment I was thrashing, trying to shove the pale thing off me, and the next the wood splintered and I was falling straight into the gasoline pooling below. The cold burned instantly, searing through my clothes like acid. I scrambled up, coughing, but the puddle was no longer just liquid. It had depth. I could feel it pulling me down, thick and viscous, tugging at my legs. My fingers clawed at the tiles, but they crumbled into the black, breaking apart like wet paper. The creatures above didn't follow. They stood at the edge, watching with heads tilted, mouths hanging slack. The red glow from the Volga flared brighter, and the pull got stronger. By the time I realized I was being dragged toward the open car door, it was too late. The world outside shrank into a smear of light as the darkness inside swallowed me. I expected to hit a seat, to feel the rough vinyl under my hands, but my knees struck cold stone. My palms met dirt. The smell hit me first. Rot, mildew, and something chemical that burned the back of my throat. The car door slammed behind me. When I looked up, I knew this wasn't a car anymore. It wasn't anything human. I was in a corridor. Stone walls slick with black slime, ceiling lost in shadow. A faint red glow pulsed from somewhere deep within, and with each pulse came the sound of that engine, thudding like a heartbeat. The air was thick and wet, clinging to my skin. I could hear movement all around me. Soft scraping, wet dragging. Something brushed past my ankle, but when I looked, it was gone. I moved forward, my footsteps echoing. The corridor bent and twisted in ways that made no sense, sometimes narrowing until the walls scraped my shoulders, sometimes opening into chambers so vast I couldn't see the far side. In the first chamber, I found the bodies. They hung from the ceiling by cords of the same black vein that was spreading under my skin. Some were fresh, eyes wide, mouths frozen mid-scream. Others were nothing but pale husks, skin sagging loose over bone. The cords pulsed faintly, and every so often a thick drop of black liquid fell from them, hissing as it hit the floor. In the corner, something moved. A child, maybe 8 or 9, curled up against the wall. Her face was smeared with the black substance, but her eyes were clear. She stared at me without blinking, lips moving in a whisper I couldn't hear. I took a step toward her, and the floor shifted. The stone wasn't stone, it was skin. It rippled under my feet, tightening in waves, pulling the girl back toward the wall. Her mouth opened wide, but no sound came out. The black cords shot from the darkness above, wrapping around her wrists and ankles, dragging her upward. She vanished into the shadows before I could move. The engine sound grew louder, the walls vibrated. I stumbled forward into another corridor, the air getting warmer, thicker. Shapes were pressed into the walls, outlines of people, their faces just beneath the surface, mouths opening and closing like they were drowning. Some pounded weakly against the membrane, their eyes rolling toward me as I passed. The black veins on my chest burned hotter now, each pulse sinking with the glow ahead. When I reached the source of the light, I had to stop. The chamber was circular, impossibly large. The red glow came from a pit in the center, where a massive, throbbing mass rose and fell like a living heart. Tubes of black liquid fed into it from every direction. Some embedded in the walls, others hanging from the ceiling like the cords I'd seen before. Creatures like the one from the station crawled along the tubes, their movements jerky and insect-like. Some were tearing open sacks that hung from the cords, wet, sagging things that, when ripped, spilled pale limbs and hair. They pushed the contents into openings in the tubes, and the black liquid inside thickened, pumping faster toward the heart. I realized then, and it wasn't blood the car took. It was everything. Every drop of warmth, breath, and movement was stripped away and fed into this thing, whatever it was. I took a step back, but a sound behind me made me freeze. The driver had arrived. It wasn't a man. It wasn't even close. Its body was tall but wrong, bending at strange angles, every movement slow and deliberate. It wore something that might have once been a driver's uniform, but the fabric was fused into the pale skin beneath, stitched by the same black veins. Where its face should have been was a single, smooth expanse of skin, with only a slit where the mouth was, and that slit split open now, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. It didn't walk toward me. It glided, each step stretching the space between us in impossible ways, so that no matter how I moved, it was closer. When it reached me, it didn't grab. It put one long, cold finger to the burning handprint on my chest and pressed. The veins under my skin surged outward, racing toward my throat, my arms, my legs. My body went rigid. I couldn't breathe. The world tilted, and in the corner of my vision, the heart in the pit pulsed faster, louder. I wasn't being held here. I was being prepared. And then, somewhere deep in the car's impossible body, the horn blared again. But this time it wasn't calling something to feed. It was calling me deeper. The driver's touch was cold, but the veins it fed into me burned like molten wire. Every heartbeat pumped more of that black liquid through my body, pushing out warmth, thought, and will. My arms wouldn't move. My knees buckled, but instead of hitting the ground, I was lifted. The driver's long fingers hooking under my ribs as if my bones were nothing. It carried me toward the pit. Up close, the heart wasn't a single mass. It was hundreds of shapes fused together, torsos, arms, faces, all pressed into the wet surface, mouths opening and closing as if they were still trying to scream. Their eyes darted frantically, rolling in the jelly-like flesh, tracking me as I was brought closer. I could hear them now, not in the air but in my head. A chorus of frantic whispers layered on top of each other. Some begged for help. Some begged for death. Others just repeated my name over and over, voices growing louder the nearer I got. The driver stopped at the pit's edge, its smooth, faceless head tilted, as if listening for something far away. Then it opened its mouth and vomited a thick black cord that slithered across the floor toward me. The smell was enough to make my stomach twist. Gasoline mixed with rotting meat and burnt metal. The cord wrapped around my neck. The instant it touched me, My vision went white. Every memory I'd ever had flashed in an instant. My childhood bedroom, my mother's voice, the feel of summer air on my skin, and then each one burned away, replaced by cold. It wasn't stealing my life, it was erasing it. I could feel myself slipping, not just dying, but unmaking. The driver stepped forward and pushed me into the pit. The surface of the heart split open like a mouth. The walls inside were wet and pulsing, the air thick enough to choke on. The black veins shot from every side, piercing my skin, burrowing deep. The burning in my chest flared into agony as the original handprint tore open, spilling the liquid straight into whatever passed for my veins now. I tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed before it left my throat. My body convulsed as the tubes drank me in. My blood, my breath, even the faint spark that made me me. I could feel it leaving, rushing through the veins into the heart's core. Around me, the faces in the walls shifted. Some I recognized. The gas station clerk from before, the child whose shoe had fallen onto the tiles, others I'd never seen. Their mouths moved in sync now, not in screams but in a single unified whisper. "Stay." The heart pulsed faster, the chamber vibrating with the force of it. Somewhere far above, the car's engine roared, rattling through the walls. I realized with sick certainty that the beating of this thing was the idling purr of the Volga's motor. Every life it had taken, every voice it had stolen, feeding it. I felt my limbs dissolve into the walls, my skin becoming the same pale membrane that trapped the others. My eyes sank into darkness. My mouth moved without my control. Somewhere far away above the chambers and corridors, I felt the Volga's tires roll over asphalt. The red lights flared. The horn called. And deep inside, my new voice joined the others, calling the next one home. The new guy showed up just before midnight, hood pulled tight against the wind. He'd answered the help wanted sign in the window without asking questions, said he needed the hours. The manager tossed him the keys and left without small talk. The station was dead quiet. A few moths battered themselves against the glass. The hum of the fridges was steady and low. He stocked shelves for a while, then stood behind the counter, watching the road through the front window. Sometime after 1, he noticed the smell, gasoline, stronger than it should have been. He glanced at the pumps, all of them were off. The smell didn't fade. Then he heard the engine, a slow, deep growl from the darkness beyond the reach of the lights. No headlights, just the sound growing closer. He stepped toward the glass, squinting into the black. That's when the lights over the pumps flickered. Once. Twice. And in the reflection, he saw a shape behind him. A pale face in the glass, smiling too wide. Thank you for listening. I kindly ask you to drop a like and subscribe and share this video with fellow horror story fan.